So Arizona Coyotes star defenseman Jakob Chychrun is back in the news. Yesterday, it came out that he still does want to be traded from the Arizona Coyotes to a contending team, a playoff contending team, a situation where he actually gets a chance to win. I'm going to read you guys a little bit of this article from NHL.com, and then afterwards, I want to go over some teams that I feel like make the most sense and are in the best situation to actually go out and trade for Chychrun. So starting off with the article, Jakob Chychrun said he still wants to be traded from the Coyotes, but the 24-year-old defenseman remains on their roster with training camp set to open Thursday. Chychrun said he and the Coyotes agreed early last season it was best for each party that he be traded, but that did not happen prior to the NHL trade deadline, during the NHL draft, or in an offseason when Chychrun had surgery on his wrist and ankle. He is expected to be ready when Arizona opens the season at the Pittsburgh Penguins on October 13th. Chychrun has not backed off his trade request, but there is no clear sign as to when Arizona will fulfill it. Arizona finished 25-50-7 last season, last in the Central Division, and has failed to qualify for the Stanley Cup playoffs in 9 of the past 10 seasons. Now moving on to what Chychrun actually had to say for himself, the team approached me a couple of times, one before the 2021-22 season, one early in the season, and we just had discussions about where I was mentally and where the team was at. Knowing the type of competitor and person that I am, they indicated if this rebuild was going to be hard or difficult on me, that if I wanted to be in a different situation, they were going to be willing to and make that happen. I decided to take them up on that offer and try to move on to a better situation because of my desire to win in this league. Careers are so short, the time flies by, and I'm in my 7th year in the NHL. It's just crazy. I don't want these years to keep going by and be 10, 12 years in and not have had a real good chance at not only the playoffs, but winning the Stanley Cup. That's really my mentality and where I'm at, and I think the team understands that to get moved to a situation with a chance to win and a team that's fighting for the Stanley Cup. So I'll leave it there. I will leave a link to the article down below in the description if you guys want to go read the rest of it, read the entire thing for yourself. But it definitely sounds like the Coyotes and Chychrun and his camp are on the same page. It sounds like Jakob Chychrun is being a complete pro about this. He's not sitting out until his trade request is fulfilled. He actually said that they talked about this prior to the start of last season, and yet he still played the entirety of the year with the Coyotes when he was healthy. It definitely makes sense as to why this is taking long. Chychrun did sustain an injury last season, so that doesn't help when it comes to trying to facilitate a trade. And of course, Jakob Chychrun is a fantastic top pairing defenseman on a very team-friendly contract. He has a cap hit of just $4.6 million through the 2024-25 season. That's one of the better value deals in the league, if you ask me. His modified no trade clause doesn't kick in until after this season as well, so right now and up until the trade deadline and in the offseason, the Arizona Coyotes could trade Jakob Chychrun wherever they want, and Jakob Chychrun, even if he didn't want to go there, doesn't really have a say in it. So now that we understand the situation, let's talk about some teams that I feel like are in the best situation to actually go out and make a trade for Jakob Chychrun, have the assets for it. There's one team in mind that I think makes absolutely the most sense, but we'll save them for last. The first team I want to talk about is actually the Ottawa Senators. It's pretty clear based off of the moves that Pierre Dorion made this offseason that he's done watching his team finish in the basement of the league. The Ottawa Senators are ready to be playoff contenders. Now, are they a sure bet to make the playoffs this season? Of course not, but they're definitely a much better team now than they were this time last year. The one question mark that a lot of people have for the Ottawa Senators, though, heading into this season, including myself, is the blue line. Is that D-core good enough for them to be in a position to compete for a playoff spot and ultimately be a playoff team in the next couple of seasons? Obviously, they have Thomas Chabot back there. The dude is an absolute beast, a true top pairing defenseman. Jake Sanderson should make the team this year, and there's high hopes for him to come in and play a top 4 role on the left side. But aside from those two, there's a lot of question marks back there. And I mean, I guess you could say Jake Sanderson is a question mark too, because obviously we've yet to see him play full-time in the NHL just yet. So you guys get where I'm going with this. They could definitely use some improvements on the blue line, and I think they have the assets as to where they can make a Chychrun trade happen. They have a ton of draft picks, a pretty deep prospect pool, and those are the things the Coyotes are going to be looking for in a Chychrun trade. Now, the one thing that kind of makes me feel like this probably won't happen is Jakob Chychrun is a left shot defenseman. He plays on the left side, and so do Thomas Chabot and Jake Sanderson. So I kind of feel like if the Ottawa Senators are going to go out and spend a ton of assets in a trade to acquire a top 4 defenseman, they're likely going to want to get someone who plays on the right side to find Thomas Chabot a long-term D partner. The next team I want to talk about, because I've gotten a lot of questions about this team and a potential Jakob Chychrun trade, is actually the Red Wings. They are in a similar situation to the Ottawa Senators in a sense that they are an up-and-coming team who has improved a lot over this offseason and are expected to be, in the wildcard hunt potentially this upcoming season, be a playoff contender in the next couple of years. They also have a lot of draft picks and a ton of prospects, which are things that the Arizona Coyotes will be looking for in a Chychrun trade, like the Ottawa Senators, but I honestly do feel like Detroit is in a little bit more better of a position to make a trade for Chychrun, and it makes a little bit more sense for them because Detroit's, franchise blue liner Moritz Seider plays on the right side. He's a right shot defenseman, and although the Red Wings do have a ton of left shot, left side defenseman prospects, the only one that's really expected to be, star caliber and a surefire top 4 is Simon Edvinsson. Jakob Chychrun also fits the timeline pretty well when it comes to the Red Wings, and he's kind of in line with the young core that they have. Chychrun is still young, even though he's been in the league for a while. He's only 24 years old. Like I mentioned, one of the most team-friendly deals in the league, and if the Red Wings were to pull off a Chychrun trade, I could see Chychrun Seider being one of the best D pairings in the league for a very, very long time. And we know that Steve Yzerman isn't afraid to make splashes. We saw that when he traded Anthony Mantha for Jacob Vrana and the first-round pick, and that big blockbuster trade that happened at the trade deadline in the 2020-21 season. So the Red Wings are definitely, I feel like, a dark horse team that could find a way to acquire Jakob Chychrun. But now I want to move on to the one team that I feel like is in the best position to make a trade like this, and it makes the most sense, and that team is the Los Angeles Kings. Like the Red Wings and Senators, the Kings are an up-and-coming team, but at the same time, they are already very good. They made the playoffs this past season, took Edmonton to 7 games in the first round. If you add Jakob Chychrun to that roster that the Los Angeles Kings already have, I feel like it immediately makes them one of the best teams in the Western Conference, and I feel like you can already make the case that they're a top 5, top 4 team in that conference without Jakob Chychrun, and that's not something you can say about the Red Wings and Senators. Like, say you add Jakob Chychrun to the Senators or the Red Wings, I still don't think either of those teams are, a lock to make the postseason. Basically, what I'm getting at is the Kings are a lot closer to being legit Stanley Cup contenders than the Red Wings and Senators are, and that is obviously the kind of situation that Jakob Chychrun wants to be in, and it's not like they're one of those teams that are probably only going to be good for another 3-4 years, potentially like the Penguins and the Washington Capitals. Like, the LA Kings have set themselves up to have long-term success, to be a perennial playoff team for a very, very long time. I feel like a package centered around, a first and a second round pick, and then a prospect like Alex Turcotte would be a really good starting point for a Jakob Chychrun trade. I'm not sure that's exactly what a deal would look like, but the Kings have a ton of prospects, one of the best young player pools in the league, and when it comes to the salary cap and everything, like I said, Jakob Chychrun's deal is amazing, and it wouldn't take much to, work around the cap and fit Jakob Chychrun on that Kings roster. So that is pretty much going to wrap up today's video, going over the current situation involving Coyote star defenseman Jakob Chychrun, and going over some teams that I feel like could actually potentially make a trade for Chychrun in the next couple of months. If you guys enjoyed this video, obviously please be sure to leave it a like. That's the best way to show your support. Let me know down below in the comments section if there's any other teams that I didn't mention that you could see making a run for Chychrun, and most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all soon.